Hello, my name's Cliff Freilich. I'm the Executive Director of Cinema St. Louis, and I'm joined by both the subject and the director of The Honest Work of Farming. Let's say hello to both Rickie Ross and Austin Williams. Rickie's the filmmaker, Austin is the subject. So say hi, both of you.
Hello.
Hello. Hello to everyone watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, because I did. I've watched it multiple times.
Some people don't like seeing themselves on camera, so it's good that you don't have that problem.
No, I'm not very bashful.
He does not.
All right, well, let's start with Rickie and just get the story of the origins of this film, how he became interested in making this movie, how he found you, and how it all evolved. So, Rickie?
Yeah. Me and Austin went to high school together. We were good friends. And I filmed his wedding, actually, in Colorado. And he moved there. He met his wife there and moved there and became an English teacher. And so when I heard that he moved back to Missouri to be a farmer, my first response was, of course, Austin did that. And second was just like, I want to know why he did that, because I think a lot of people of the world would say, maybe just question, like, Austin, why would you do that? Like, you had a stable job as a teacher, and like, why would you move your whole family to be a farmer? And my perspective is like, I think it's amazing that he did that and that him and his wife Kelly did that. But I just really wanted to know like why he did it and get that story out there. And then really once I got there and started filming, that's when I realized that it was about why he did that, but also it was so much about the type of farming that he's doing and why it's good for the environment and better for us. So it really became a lot about that, which was not the plan, but it was a happy accident for sure.
All right. Before we move on to Austin, let's get just a little background on you, Rickie, with regard to your own filmmaking ambitions, where you came from. Did you study filmmaking? Are you hoping to make documentaries, or do you have more diverse interests and hope to do narrative as well?
Yeah, I did. I'm from St. Louis, but I did do a film program in California for one semester of school. And that really, once I started that, I just fell in love with it even more and kind of just knew that I was going to do that. So then after that, I started just doing anything I could full-time, freelance video, a lot of weddings and corporate stuff. But yeah, I'm really drawn to anything narrative, but especially documentaries. I love that the stories are real and it's just kind of capturing life and people's real stories. And so I really do want to pursue more documentary stuff and just finding the stories of people that I think really the world should see.
Okay, great. Well, obviously, Austin is one of those stories that you felt the world should see, and I'm glad you did. Austin, let's talk a little bit about your transition from teaching to farming. Now, you mentioned in the film that you actually started working on a farm. Was that in Colorado, or was that back here in Missouri?
No, everything farming related in my life has happened in Missouri. Like I went from, as they say in Kung Fu Panda, level 0. Like there's nothing that was remotely even parallel to the world of farming in my life before I stepped foot on a farm to become a farmer full time. Yeah, like Rickie said, I met my wife out in Colorado. We were actually both hiking a mountain, and we had never met each other, and that was the first time we had met. And we got married out there 11 months later, and I became an English teacher. And then I was really burned out. I was feeling very unsupported in the classroom. I really didn't know what direction to take with the kids, and it really all just kind of came to a head when I just realized that like it just wasn't for me. Like it just wasn't. It wasn't the job that I was supposed to have. And I knew that, it wasn't doing the kids any good service by me sticking around, years until I kind of felt like I had gained my traction if I wasn't like totally in love with the job. So I had a friend basically call me out of the blue, which I think of it as God's providence. And he's like, Austin, would you ever want to be a farmer? Like, and this is a friend I had met in college. And the backstory to that is that he was I was in this Bible study in college, and it was 3 guys. It was me, this guy, and another guy. And it was the third guy that I actually went on his bachelor party to Colorado, and that I met my wife on when we hiked the mountain. So between this Bible study, one of the guys ended up giving me my wife, and the other guy ended up giving me my job. And so I came back to Missouri. I decided to leave teaching. I came back, started on a farm full time from day one, working, 8 to 12 hours a day in the blistering Missouri sun. And I came back though, knowing kind of like what you said, like what Rickie said earlier about the kind of farming that we do, that this wasn't just the farming that I had heard horror stories about from our grandparents who, had tried and failed, or their parents had farmed, and it was this kind of soul-sucking endeavor. But it was this farm where, you got to walk onto it every day, just wondering what you would get to like massage life into, what would you get to create instead of what would you get to destroy? Because a lot of farms you have to walk on there thinking, okay, I'm going to kill that weed. That cow's probably dead. This thing's going to die on me. So so it's dead. But I get to walk on thinking like, I wonder if that thing is like growing yet. I wonder how much milk my cow is going to make today. Like everything is this exponential sort of like increase rather than just this kill that, kill this, kill that.
So how long did you work on the farm before you made the leap to taking the farm over?
0. Like I never had stepped foot on a farm, not even a minute. I think I took a school field trip to a farm one time. Like I had my friend, he was with me so when I moved back to Missouri to be a farmer, he commuted from about 45 minutes away for 2 months to kind of like spend the day with me. So he would kind of show me the ropes. And then he came back down with a really bad stomach bug, and he just basically just stopped coming. At that point I had phone call support, and that was it. From that point on, it was basically I was on my own. And that has presented a lot of challenges. And, we've realized that actually probably pushed just kind of kicked the can down on the road for several problems that we're kind of now just starting to overcome. But I had no experience on the farm, managing a farm, until I was managing a farm. It was a lot. Yeah.
So truly thrown into the deep end of the pool.
Truly. Yes.
Now, give us a little bit of how the farm works, where it is in Missouri, and also just the scope of the operation, how big of a spread it is, and then what the things you do on the farm, the number of animals, the kind of crops that you actually raise. Okay, yeah.
What we call ourselves, there's a lot of different names that a lot of different farms have that they call themselves. We are a pasture-based farm. The important thing is that our animals, so we're an animal-based farm. We don't do vegetables. We do animals. Our animals only eat grass. They don't eat any grain. So we don't do herbicides, pesticides, fungicides. We don't do fertilizer. We don't really even do vaccines or antibiotics. Like our animals really from birth to death, they live completely natural lives. They don't eat the kind of grain that you see cows in conventional operations eat. The most grain they'll ever see in their lives is the grain at the end of a seed head on a piece of grass. And, they'll accidentally eat a few of those over the course of their life, but that's it. We have about 120 animal units when it comes to cows. So, or otherwise in farming lingo, that's called about 80 cow-calf pairs. So we have about 80, 60 to 80, like older cows that are like 2 to 3 years old. And we have a bunch of calves. We also have at this moment about 500 to 600 sheep and about 400 lambs, maybe 300 to 400 lambs running around the place. So we have a very, very large flock of sheep, probably the largest flock in all of Missouri, if not the Midwest. No, probably just Missouri. I'm just going to say the state of Missouri. And on our other farm that's managed by my friend, we're kind of a split farm. So in Boonville, which is where we are located, that's like in the middle of the state. And that's really it's 2 hours to Kansas City and 2 hours to St. Louis. So it's really, really splits the state in half. And then about 45 minutes south of us south and west really, is where my friend is located. And he has what's called the broiler side of our operation. And he is working on his family farm. My friend grew up farming. So that's kind of where we got to have, you know, I didn't just get thrown in completely without support. I did have those 2 months. And fortunately, he's grown up farming. So he has a lifetime of experience of how to do things and when things go wrong and how to help me out. So he has, right now, we are probably in the top 3 largest pasture-raised broiler operations in the entire country. And broilers are meat.
Can you define what broiler is?
Meat chickens, I should say. They're meat chickens. So if you go to any fast food restaurant, if you go to Chick-fil-A and you have, you know, chicken breast sandwich, that comes from a broiler. We have at any given time about 32,000 pasture-raised chickens on our operation. And that's, I mean, the scale of that, I mean, it's tremendous. Like it's a huge number of chickens. And you know, we're experimenting with new things all the time. We're trying to figure out, you know, what, you know, the kind of an ecological balance to hit between like profit, but also like wanting to always be a benefit to the ecosystems that support us. A big part of our farm is like, you know, we want to work in sync with nature rather than against it. So instead of us deciding that, oh, you know, we're going to spray all these chemicals over here because we don't like these weeds, you know, we're going to say, if we don't like the weeds for whatever reason, we'll just let the sheep eat them. Like sheep love to eat weeds. That's like their favorite food in the whole world. Like they'd rather eat a bunch of weeds than they would want to eat the nicest, greenest looking grass you've ever seen. So, you know, I'd say the way that we describe our farm is like the word that we use is stewardship. You know, we believe that God gave the land to us and we want to be good stewards of it. So we want to use the things that he's given us and work with the land that he's given us in a way that works with the rhythms of the landscape and works instead of against it. Because we find that we spend a lot of farmers spend a lot of time like working against things that will happen naturally every year. Like there's for instance, there's like farming equipment there's something called a thistle hoe. It's one of my favorite ones. And there's this thistle is a plant that it's like really spiky, and there's a hoe that it's specifically made just so that you hit the ground, and it has a kind of shallow taproot, so then you can kill it. But the thing is that a thistle only grows in a certain type of soil, and it only grows in really weak soil. So if you go around your farm and kill single thistle you see, next year there's a 100% chance that a thistle is going to grow in that exact same spot. Like it only grows there because there's weak soil. So instead of us like going around our farm chopping down every thistle, we just rotate our cattle around our farm and our sheep in something that's called high density rotational grazing that kind of mimics these long extinct huge herds of bison that used to roam the American Midwest. And we there's a lot of disturbance, there's a lot of trampling, and what we're doing is we're resetting the ecosystems. We're removing all this kind of grass that has grown up and sometimes has become dead and fallen over, and we harvest it, and then we're essentially letting it breathe. And the ground will then fill in some of those bare spots with thistle for the first year. But then if you just high density rotationally graze it often enough for enough years, it's just going to replace those thistle with really, really thick clover grass. And then the clover grass eventually gets replaced with fescue, and then fescue eventually gets replaced with Indian grass. And so like you get this wonderful, wonderful ecosystem without ever having to swing at a thistle. It's just by the way that we manage our animals.
And how large is the entire operation between the two farms?
So between his farm and my farm, we run for his chickens plus, so just the land that he uses for his chickens plus all the land that we use for our sheep and our cows here is a little over 1,000 acres. He's
No, go ahead.
It doesn't matter. The breakdown isn't really that important. Besides, like I have about 900 between two farms that I manage, and then he has about 200. So,
Now, a question that was on my mind too, you're raising these animals in ethical fashion, but obviously they're designed to be eaten eventually and
Yep.
they're going to get slaughtered.
Mhm.
So I'm curious as to what that operation is
Uh-huh.
in your particular farming operation.
Oh yeah, so we don't do any of the processing for our animals. So we're not the ones killing them. We're actually looking into potentially doing the processing for our own chickens. As far as potentially like any ethical dilemmas that may arise out of this philosophy, it's something that it's a fair question. I'm not gonna lie. Like yeah, like we do most certainly kill the animals that we use to regenerate the land. My what I would offer to anybody who cares to, if they would like to think twice about it, if you already have your mind set, I'm probably not going to change your mind, is that every second that we live, every moment of our existence, every moment of life even is ultimately robbed from death. I mean, if you think about it, even the trees, like if you think of soil as a medium that they live in, the soil is just dead things that used to be alive. I mean, it's carbon, it's organic matter. It's like, it's all these things that have perished. And that's the only way that trees are able to survive, is that they're able to draw nutrients from that. And when it comes to animals and killing them and eating them, ultimately, everything that we do is robbed from death. And it's a very visceral reminder. And I think it's one of the reasons why the killing of animals was a symbol in the Old Testament for God's incredible love for the Israelites, is he gave them this symbol that he said, you have to kill something so that you can remember like just how horrible your sin is, and that something has to die to make your sin right. And like, it's because it's powerful. Like when you kill an animal, when you eat one, it's not a pretty sight. And I'm sure that if I went to a processing plant, that it would, I'd probably, my eyebrows would kind of shoot up if I would see some of it. But ultimately, everything that is alive is ultimately only alive because other things have died to support it. Whether that's trees, whether that's plankton in the ocean being eaten by whales, whether that's deer eating grass, whether it's people eating fruit, and whether it's people eating animals, it's all ultimately robbed from death.
Okay. A couple practical questions. Just curious,
Yes.
how long have you been at this now? How many years have you been on the farm?
I've been on the farm since 2018. I am coming up here pretty soon on year 2. I have been here almost 2 full years of farming, and has definitely been the 2 hardest years of my life, but it's been the most satisfying 2 years of my life, easily.
Now, farming is obviously a very difficult job, not just from a physical labor point of view, but because of the unpredictability of the environment. Climate change, things of that nature is going to obviously at some point probably affect you on some levels, even in your operation, even though you're not growing crops. Your ability to grow the grass could ultimately be affected. So, do you worry about that, the long-term viability, given the fact that we are, as a overall species, not treating the planet particularly well?
It's something that we don't really push it on our customers, because our main marketing tactic with our customers is we focus on that this food is good for you and good for your family. And ultimately, that's why most people buy our food. And I'm very happy that's why most people buy our food. However, coming from Colorado, one of the things that I have taken away from the state, and that I have also kind of gained from my wife, I've just really grown to love the outdoors. And I really, really grew to love like conservation and backpacking, and like just enjoying, once again, the gift of creation, and enjoying the great outdoors. And so so beyond like the fact that we eat this food because we believe that grass-fed and pasture-based food is better than the conventional alternative for us and for our bodies, we also do believe that it's because we are treating the earth better, and we are doing our part actually in mitigating climate change. As far as what our localized impact will be in Missouri, obviously winters are becoming more and more mild. Summers are lengthening. They're getting hotter. droughts may or may not increase. I don't think that compared to some place like Alaska, we are definitely not going to be affected as much as places like Alaska will be, and some of the more northern reaches. But even in my lifetime, I remember back when it would snow around Thanksgiving, and there would be snow on the ground until March, and now it's like maybe it snows twice. And last winter was a bit of an anomaly. It was actually probably a more historically normal winter. I mean, there was, or I should say 2 winters ago was probably more historically normal. There was 3 feet of snow for what seemed like 2 or 3 months. As far as climate change goes, like, we believe that by rotationally grazing our animals in the way that we are, that we are actually, we are, by the way that photosynthesis works and the way that carbon is built into plants. So when plants suck carbon out of the air, I don't know how long you want me to get into this, because I have a really, really deep, like, scientific, like, wormhole I can get in here. Basically, we are trapping a lot of the excess carbon dioxide in the air in the extra grass that's growing in our farm that we're harvesting with our animals. And they're turning that, and they're fermenting it in their stomachs, and they poop it out onto the ground. And then that manure basically gets taken down by all the decomposers in the ecosystem. It becomes part of the topsoil, and then eventually it becomes humus, which is really stable topsoil. And so essentially we are sequestering CO2 on our farm by the way that we do things, and we feel like we're doing our part.
Oh, you're definitely doing your part. It's more the other kind of intensive industrial farming.
Yeah. I'll say, like, the farm across the road from us, like, it's totally conventional. Like, it's bare, after every harvest, it looks like the moon when you walk across it. And after every large rainstorm, there is all this extra artificial nitrogen that he puts on his fields, and it gets washed onto our farm, and it creates these huge algae blooms in our lake. And I've been thinking about ways, like, because I can't force him to stop doing it. So, like, I've been thinking about trying to get, like, fish to stock the pond with, so that, like, they will eat all this, like, algae off the surface of the lake. But, like, yeah, like, people's choices matter. The other guy who has a farm next to us, there's a topographic difference of, like, 2 feet between our farm and then his farm, because the way he has farmed for the last 50 years, or his family, has been just keep their animals in one place and don't move them. And there's literally 2 feet of no soil, and his farm is just rocks.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much. We started with Rickie, so let's end with him as well. He's been very patiently listening.
I love listening to it.
I'm curious as to what your hopes are for the film, where you want to go with it as far as getting this message of Austin's out into the world. What are your plans?
I put it in a few festivals. I think only 4 or 5 so far. I just kind of want to see how it does. And I don't know, I would love to find any or multiple organizations that will, I guess, benefit from this the most, from the way that they do their farming, and I don't know, give it out to them and let people watch it and see if maybe anybody will kind of change, like, how they do things, and do it more this way. That's the hope of it.
It's certainly tailor-made for educational experiences, so I hope that you're successful in that. And then last, anything percolating right now? Obviously, during the pandemic, it's not easy to make movies. But do you have some thoughts as to what your next project is going to be, or have you already started on one?
Yeah, I have another kind of mini documentary. It's a musician that I know. I filmed maybe half of it, and I need to film some more, but we've been postponed from COVID. Her brother is more susceptible to health problems, so we haven't been able to meet at all to film. But that will hopefully be coming out sometime this year. Some kind of a similar, I think, topic, but she's a musician, and so just going down that path.
All right, well, great. We look forward, and we hope that we get to see it here at the St. Louis International Film Festival or St. Louis Filmmaker Showcase. I thank both of you for taking the time out of your day, especially you, Austin. I know you have work to do. So thanks again.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.